What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with my MLB Week 17 power rankings. And as you can see here, the Rangers move up 9 spots. And then my Tigers, well, we're going down 7 after just an awful week, probably the worst week of baseball I've seen my Tigers play this year. But before we get into it, we got to talk about the stories of the week. Some trades going down already. And as you can see there, it's been 5 big trades. Seattle gets Josh Naylor. The Mets get Gregory Soto. Yankees get Brian McMahon. Kansas City is getting Randall Grichuk, and the Yankees get Ahmed Rosario from the Washington Nationals. And then also, I guess technically trade-wise, look at that bottom there. Seth Lugo gets extended by Kansas City, meaning they're probably going in this year and trying to compete for a wild card spot, maybe a division if the Tigers keep free falling. But in the middle there, you got Nick, Kurtz, 4 home run game at Houston. Would have been 5 if he was in a different ballpark, or 2, and that would have been the first time ever in history. But congrats to the kid, just balling out there on Saturday night. Cincinnati starting pitcher Nick Lodolo, complete game shutout against the Nationals, 4 hits, 8 strikeouts. Cal Raleigh just keeps on mashing, 41 home runs this year. On Sunday, he hit that 41st against the Angels. And then some IL news. Judge goes to the IL with a flexor strain in his arm, and Chris Bubik lands on the 15-day IL as well with a left rotator cuff strain. And then something new I'm adding here. We're going to go with standings because it is going to be August by the time you're going to see this, or late July, early August. And you can see there the AL East is not out of hand. The Tigers obviously have the biggest advantage there, 7-game lead. Then the Astros are holding off by 4 games right now from the Mariners and the Rangers, the Rangers are on fire, so they're coming for that crown. But I think the East and the West, obviously the AL here, are probably the most that are up for grabs. The Rays are probably going to finish 81 and 81 just on how they're playing. Flip it over to the NL side. You have the Mets with, I think that's a game and a half lead if my math is mathing, over the Phillies. The Central dead square even. And oh yeah, those 2 teams play each other Monday through Wednesday, so you're not going to want to miss that. And then the West, the Dodgers are still running the West, but the Giants, I think, are an interesting team. The Diamondbacks have already said that they're selling. And then the Padres, I think they're even floating around Dylan Cease. So this time next week, he could still be on the team, or he could be traded. And a lot of these teams are going to look different. And I think I'm going to rank them next week based on how they do with the deadline as well. We're talking about the rankings here. Let's go from 30 to 26. All these teams just shuffled around this week except the Rockies. They stay put in 30th. White Sox move back 2. Nationals move up 2 because they won both their series against the Reds and on the road against the Twins. Braves, they move back to 28 after losing both of their series against San Francisco and Texas. You could probably put them behind the White Sox at this point because the White Sox won a series against Tampa, but these teams, it doesn't matter. Their season's already over. It's more, what are they doing at the deadline? But the Pirates, I will speak positive of them because they swept the Tigers at home, and then they also beat the Diamondbacks. So 5-1 record that week. The week before the deadline, maybe gives the Pirates some good vibes here going into that deadline. 21 through 25, more than likely, all these teams will be sellers as well. I'm sure the Diamondbacks didn't want to be a seller heading into this year. Twins, same way. It was their division at the beginning of the year. At least projection-wise, they were the favorites. Same with the Orioles. They were the top 2 favorites. It was either them or the Yankees were the favorites, and then the Red Sox were in that close third running to win that division. But the Orioles, the wheels have fallen off. So all these teams, you could be getting some guys for your favorite team. If you're in the hunt this year for the playoffs, you could be getting some guys from any of these teams. The only positive I can say is look at the Athletics going into Houston and sweeping the Astros. I think the Athletics are going to be a team that you're not going to want to play here these next few months because they're young. They don't care. They already kind of know they're out of it. They're just going to go in and grind and prove that they all belong here in the major leagues. 16 through 20, these are the teams that are very interesting when it comes to the deadline, especially when you have series win weeks like the Marlins and the Royals. Both those teams got it done. Royals move up 3 because they went in Chicago, won that series, then won at Cleveland against Cleveland at home, excuse me. The Marlins, they move up 5 spots after being San Diego at home and then going to Milwaukee, the hottest team in baseball, and stealing series there. Kyle Stowers is legit. If they can go into St. Louis and then keep taking 2 or 3 against these teams, sooner or later, Miami's going to be a 500 ball club. And who knows, they might be competing for a playoff spot if they don't unload the roster. But I really can only see them moving Sandy in my eyes, maybe a younger starter if they want to get some more prospects. But who knows? This team is competing. They're playing hard baseball. You just never know in baseball. The Tigers did it last year, and they sold at the deadline, got rid of a few guys, and still made the playoffs. So you never know what could happen here. Guardians, they're I think still going to try for the playoffs. Maybe they have an easy week this week, so I know it's crazy that GMs think that one good week the week before, or one bad week before the deadline, we just got to sell. We're sellers or buyers. I don't understand how just one week of baseball decides if you're going to be a buyer or a seller at this point in the series or season. But here we are. Rays, I thought this team was going to finally hit their stride out of the break and really take that momentum they had going into the All-Star break. But unfortunately, they're not. As you can see there, 1-5 this week against the White Sox. Lost that series, then getting swept in Cincinnati. Not a good look there for Tampa. And what do you get rewarded with this week? Oh, yeah, the two teams that made it to the World Series last year. You got 4 against the Yankees, an in-division game, obviously. Then you return home and you get the Dodgers at home. So things can go from bad to very bad for the Rays this week. And then team that I haven't talked about yet is the Cardinals. They dropped one spot after a so-so week. That series in Colorado, losing a series in Colorado. I think they're the first team to do that this year, or maybe the second. But that's a tough task to do so. 11 through 15. Now, I think this is where it can get a little dicey. I'm dropping my Tigers not only out of the top 5, but out of the top 10 as well. They have not played good at all. That's only their second win on Sunday, the whatever day it is, the Sunday. It's only their second win in 20 days. And one of them was a schoolboy start where he dominated, and the Sunday win was where Flaherty pitched great, and the offense just exploded after Max Scherzer got pulled. So the Tigers, they're going to be deadline buyers, and they're going to have to address the bullpen and the pitching at this point, and maybe even a bat just to go along with it. Yankees, they got McMahon, like I said, but defense, great, but hitting, he's going to fit right in because he's going to do nothing probably for them. Reds, they could be sellers, could be buyers. I don't know what their plan is, but they could just sit right in the middle too and do nothing. Mariners and Giants, I think the Giants still got one more move in them because why not? You already got pretty much the best player available at the deadline in Devers, obviously. But, if they're going to say that, hey, we're going to do that, go get Rafi, then we're probably going to keep on buying these next few days. And then Mariners in the middle there, they fall 3. Not a bad week, but I just didn't really know where to put them. They're that odd team for me where I didn't know where to put. Unfortunately, they fell to 14. Now, after receiving some hate last week for the Cubs being at 10, I'll reward you guys by moving up one, even though you probably shouldn't because you went across town and beat the White Sox in a series who you probably should have swept. And the Royals, I get they're playing some better baseball now, but you should have won that series at home too. But they're ranked 9th right now, and you can see why. When you have teams on 6+ game winning streaks, I mean, they're more than deserving. I don't go off a record. It's just based off of who's the hottest team right now and who you don't want to play. But and with that, Mets are at 6. They're on a 7-game winning streak. Swept the Angels, went into San Francisco, swept them, and then they go to San Diego and then get San Francisco again at home next week. So it's a big week for the Mets here. If they can keep this momentum going, they could possibly not run away with the division, but take a few more games from the off of the Phillies and grow that division lead. Rangers are throwing their hat in the ring at 7, 6-0 week. It's a great week for them beating the Athletics and beating Atlanta. They should beat those teams in a series, but sweeping both, getting that winning streak going. Now they go into Los Angeles, play the Angels, and then they finish with Seattle next week, which is a series you're going to want to tune into because like you saw earlier, those two teams are tied 56 and 50, and it's going to be a huge series, not only just because of the deadline, and more than likely those teams can be buying and probably have a new player or two, but because it matters for the AOS standings and wild card standings in the AL. Padres dropped from the top 4 to 8 and lost to Miami on the road, split with St. Louis. Wasn't a bad week, but I just think there's some better teams that played some better baseball this week, and they get the Mets and the Cardinals. So, maybe they can beat the Cardinals this time in a series at home. Then they get the Mets at home as well. So that's another early series you're going to see in the week. Hopping over the Cubs to the Astros. Great start to the week, going into Arizona, sweeping them. And then I was thinking they could come home, and if you at least took 2, more than likely you wouldn't fall. you'd probably move up even. But they got swept to the Athletics. They just came in there and ran business. Now, that might be a concern for the Astros. They might address that at the deadline. Who knows? They could go anywhere because it's the Astros. They do everything right almost all the time besides cheat. And then they get the Nationals and Red Sox this week. But we'll jump back to the Cubs. Like I said, you got to watch that series this week at Milwaukee. It's a huge series. They're tied atop the NL Central. And right before the trade deadline, too. I mean, get your popcorn out. That's a series you're not going to want to miss. Now, 1 through 5, I really think 1 through 10, you can rank any of these teams almost anywhere. Blue Jays are at number 1 for me. You beat the Yankees at home. You go into Detroit and almost sweep them. They're playing some really good baseball. They're the hottest team in baseball. I just don't understand how this team's still flying under the radar, I guess you could say. No pun intended. But they could be buyers. They turned from mediocre to the month of July just tearing the cover off the baseball and being lights out. And they get Baltimore and Kansas City this week. I expect them to grow the division lead in the AL East as well. Same for the Phillies. I think they can catch up in the NL East because they get the White Sox. They should go in there and sweep them. Like I said, the Mets have some challenging series this week, and they get the Tigers at home, which hopefully it'll be a better series for the, not in Philly's favor, for my favor, the Tigers. But who knows with the NL East what's going to happen there? Because, the Phillies obviously are going to be buying and getting some pieces. Talk about buying and getting some pieces. That's going to be the Brewers. It's going to come down to hitting. We see it every postseason. They make the playoffs and then forget how to hit the ball because their pitching can do so good for 6, 7 innings. They're starters, and then after that they lose 3-1, 3-2, 4-3. They just can't figure it out. But maybe this could be the year that they can figure it out at the deadline. The Red Sox fall from 2-4. Going into Philly, lost that series, but they responded well at home against the Dodgers, win that series. That's why they're still in my top 5. They get Minnesota and Houston, probably another 3-3, 4-2 week there. And then the Dodgers fall as well. I mean, 2-1 against Minnesota should win that series. And then they go to Boston. If they were going to lose a series this week, it would be that one. So nothing too drastic there for the Dodgers. Just kind of coasting until late August, early September. And then that's when the Dodgers turn it on. We see it time and time again. They get to go on the road this week, though. So it is going to be a little tougher task as they complete that 9-game road stretch before they return home. They get Cincy and Tampa Bay this week. That's going to be it for my Week 17 Power Rankings. Check back next week to see where your favorite team ranks after the deadline. And I'm going to be updating those teams, like I said, with the acquisitions they get moving forward. So with that, the Bench Buddies are out.